I'm going to set some records straight here on today's episode of Locked On Cardinals. Sure, country concerts, hitting baseballs are fine. There is one thing that needs to be discussed, and it needs to be discussed now. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. Here we go.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Locked On Cardinals. Alex Clancy here. Follow the podcast at Locked On AZ Cards. Follow me on Twitter at Clancy's Corner. Thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen each and every day, free and available on all platforms. Truly, I truly appreciate everybody who watches and listens every day, interacts on Twitter, interacts on YouTube, etc. It's what makes it like really worth it. So I don't, say things to get people riled up just to get interaction. I say what I mean what I say, and whether you agree or disagree, I really appreciate everybody that reaches out and has conversations, because that's what sports is all about, man. That's what it's all about, having conversations. And at least from our perspective, at least from our side, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. So there's a few things that I want to hit today. I'm going to talk about the Country Thunder and Kyler Murray hitting baseballs in the last segment. Not important. Okay, it's interesting seeing people not in their suit for Steve Keim, skinny jeans for Cliff Kingsbury, and Kyler Murray wearing number 1 and shoulder pads for the Cardinals. It's just interesting seeing them in their normal element of being human beings. It's not that important. Pro Football Focus put out a list of the current free agents and potential landing spots for them. The Cardinals were pinged on a couple of those players. But first, this is something that I've been seeing coming up more and more, and I had to address it. Because I wouldn't say it's irrational, because all of this that we do during the offseason is projection, okay? Projection based on wishing, projection based on, patterns from the past, and projections based on just opinion and guessing of what you think will happen next, okay? That's my job, is to see things and discuss things. See things and give my thoughts on things that, may not be what everybody thinks, because what everybody thinks a lot of times is jaded in one way or another, whether it be fans want always what's the best for the team. In your own right, absolutely, you should think that way. National media doesn't talk about the Cardinals a lot, so you don't really have to worry about that. And from my perspective, it's, okay, let's have a critical thinking exercise about this. Why are the Cardinals here? Where do they need to go? And what's the best vessel to get them there? And one thing that I've been seeing constantly is you can't mortgage the future for ... You can't mortgage the future for ... And I'm like, why is my blood starting to boil? I don't know. It's a nice afternoon when I saw it. It was Monday afternoon. I'm like, why am I just had a nice vacation in San Diego visiting my family? Like, why is this starting to really irritate me? And it hit me. The future is now. Jim Carrey cable guy. The future is now. Kyler Murray is on the last year of his rookie scale contract. You can't always look into the future as this sense of optimism for excitement of the unknown and not realize existentially the future is now. What needs to be changed is what's happening now. Not like, oh, you know what? I don't think that they should package trades and move up, package picks and move up, because that won't give them, the draft capital they need for the future. During this season, I agree with that, because that's one thing that I've been pounding the table for. The Cardinals don't have draft picks. They already gave up a 4th to trade up for Marco Wilson and a 5th in the Zach Ertz trade. They can't. But mortgaging the future, meaning trading future assets to acquire proven talent, I can't understand why people are so excited about the future when You've got pieces to build a winning team now. What are we waiting for here, kiddos? What more do you want than the stencil of what the Cardinals have already? They have a franchise quarterback. They have an all-pro center. They have a wide receiver one. They have one of the best safeties in football with the best backup safety in football. I guess you call them the safety duos. You just need to add 2 or 3 more impact pieces right now, and this team can make a run. I don't understand why we've been watching the Arizona Cardinals sit on their flipping hands. I don't get it. And now we're 28 days, 29 days into free agency / legal tampering. The draft is 2.5 weeks away, and nothing of consequence from exterior, talent has happened. Sure, the Cardinals brought back James Conner and Zach Ertz. Fantastic. Okay, that's great. As the part of something bigger, the draft is not a vessel to bring talent in and have to play them right away or your team falters. That's not how this is supposed to work. It's not. Like, sure, with Minnesota, when they drafted Justin Jefferson, they already had an offensive roster. And he happened to be a breakout star. He wasn't forced to be a breakout star. The Cardinals traded up and drafted Marco Wilson last year and immediately threw him into action when he probably wasn't ready to be a CB2. And that's not his fault. That's not what his job is, even though he got a higher grade than him dropping to the 4th round. But this hashtag DOI definition of insanity, this is not a jaded approach. This is not a jaded thought process by me. Look at what happens constantly. You draft players and force them into roles they're not ready to play yet. And that's kind of where we're moving towards. The future is right now. When you were able to say that maybe in 2019 and 2020, you don't want to mortgage the future. That's when you have Kyler Murray still on an inexpensive contract. After this year, the future is the past. The future has been dwindled down to 17 games in the 2022 season. That's it. The future was when they were 10-2, looking towards the future. Like, you know what? Make this run. Free agents are going to want to come if they make the NFC Championship game or the Super Bowl. That's squashed. The future is right now, and I can't comprehend why people continue to think that looking into the future is just this act of, it's always going to be, it's going to be better. Let's think about then and not so much now. Stop it. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. Follow the podcast and Locked On AZ Cards. There are a couple names that have been tied to the Arizona Cardinals. Couple big name free agents that one of whom is now a journeyman. The second of whom is a guy that's a little bit in the later stages of his career. Both of whom I think could absolutely help the Cardinals because they have glaring needs in both of the position groups that these respective players play. I'll talk about that next. Locked On Cardinals. First, betonline.net is your number one source for all your betting, stats, and sports info. Find all the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's basketball playoffs and the start of the Major League Baseball season. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. Head to the website or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. Second segment, Locked On Cardinals. And before I move on, it's important to understand now. It's important to understand the status of the organization now. Sure, the future, obviously important, plan for it. They haven't done it very well, but plan for it. Sure. Learn from the past, plan towards the future, but don't forget now. And right now is a lot of uncertainty and a lot of question marks as we inch closer and closer. Obviously, we've got the whole summer, got the draft coming up in a couple weeks. I understand where they are. I also understand how they've fallen behind while other teams have really made life-altering roster moves this offseason, and the Cardinals have sat on their hands. There's a couple names from Pro Football Focus. There's an article written 2 days ago, I believe, that has two free agents who don't have homes yet. That's what makes them free agents. You come here for the hard-hitting stuff. That's why you make Locked On Cardinals your first listen each and every day. Make sure to check out one next thing before I continue. The draft is coming up, okay? And we've got you covered here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Big announcement. Starting Thursday, April 28th, tune into Locked On NFL's draft live coverage of the 2022 NFL Draft with all 3 days of real-time analysis from our extensive lineup of experts and insiders. Remember, there's one show on the Locked On Podcast Network for every NFL team and NBA and NHL and Major League Baseball. For those of you dying to know who your team will take, catch Odyssey and Locked On's NFL Mock Draft Special, hosted by Brian Peacock and former scout Matt Williamson of the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show, all week leading up to the first pick. So this is the where. The Locked On NFL Draft Live show is on the Locked On NFL Draft YouTube page. The Odyssey NFL Mock Draft is on Odyssey and Locked On NFL Draft podcast feeds. One more time, the Locked On NFL Draft is April 28th at 7 p.m. Eastern, April 29th at 6:30 p.m. Eastern, and April 30th at 11:30 a.m. Eastern. The Odyssey NFL Mock Draft is April 18th through the 22nd on the Odyssey podcast feed. That was a lot. I'm going to continue to say it, and you'll be able to indoctrinate it into your brain, so you'll be able to check those out on both platforms for both days. Stephon Gilmore is linked towards the Arizona Cardinals, according to a Pro Football Focus article. We've talked about Stephon Gilmore the last 3 seasons, 2 of which were with the Patriots, and then before he got traded to Carolina, you talked about him as a potential trade target. There's a couple things that you could take both sides of this argument. One, he's 33, I believe, and, obviously the price tag, he's 31, apologies. The price tag over the last 2.5 or 3 years since we've been talking about this has gone down. Bonus for the Cardinals. His play has gone down. Negative for the Cardinals. Now, there are certain things that you're going to look at from a guy like Stephon Gilmore. Leadership, he's a seasoned vet, and he's played for one of the best defensive coaches we've seen in the last 2 decades. All right. And he would be a bona fide, although he's 31, number 1 on this team. At least timeshare it with Byron Murphy. That would allow Byron Murphy to not have the pressure of playing CB1. That would allow Marco Wilson to not have the pressure of being a CB2 where he's relied upon week in and week out. And that would also yield the Cardinals the ability to draft a corner in one of the first 3 rounds and then put together a secondary room to go with Budda Baker and Jalen Thompson that is the strength of this organization. Sign Stephon Gilmore, all of those things fall in place. Now the draft, we'll see. I'm assuming he's going to take at least 1, if not 2, corners in the 6th and 7th round as dart throws because they've got myriad picks in the 6th and 7th round. Stephon Gilmore, I think, would be a good signing for the Cardinals. 2-year, $20 million, $14 million guaranteed. Call it a day. Okay? I think it's a no-brainer. Anybody's a no-brainer at this point. Anybody with any sort of NFL pedigree, especially a former Defensive Player of the Year, not only will do more than what J.J. Watt was asked to do, and J.J. Watt obviously was injured when his arm fell off during the middle of the season during the Texans game. He's more in his prime than J.J. Watt is now. Corners can play for longer. It's a thing. Exemplary. 1%ers. Corners can play longer. I think that would be a home run. The second one is Jadeveon Clowney. You have him as a pass rusher, edge rusher. He's a little bit younger, obviously. Played with J.J. Watt in Houston. And, this is more of a conundrum because he's 29, okay? He's underperformed for the majority of his career with what the expectations were when he went so high in the draft. Okay? he was set to be what he did to that Michigan running back in the backfield. That's what did it for him. If he didn't have that play where he blew up the offensive line, I don't know if he goes number 1 overall. I don't know. But that was the most iconic defensive plays in college football history. And I don't know if he's riding the coattails of that, but I also know he would 100% be an upgrade from what the Cardinals have now. So the Cardinals are in a situation. They're going to have to overpay for one or both of these players. You're probably not going to sign both. But this is what happens when you don't have a backup plan. The Cardinals have a severe need in both rooms, pass rushing and cornerback room. Should they sign them both? Yeah, like in a perfect world, if they had $15 million in cap space this year, absolutely. You do both. It immediately brings some veterans onto this defense, which is desperately needed. And it makes the Chandler Jones departure a little bit less harsh, even though obviously Jadeveon Clowney and Chandler Jones are not in the same atmosphere. But maybe you draft an edge rusher as well, and then you have a strength in the pass rush. Like, there's a lot of different ways this ball of dough that is the Arizona Cardinals roster can be baked into. We don't know. Is it going to be bread? Is it going to be cookies? We have no idea. I just hope that the dough isn't burnt. I hope that the dough isn't undercooked. And right now, it's me in the kitchen and not Gordon Ramsay. So, we'll see where these things go. If I had to choose one or the other, I'd probably pick Stephon Gilmore. I'd definitely pick Stephon Gilmore. Even though he's a couple years older, the dude is a proven commodity in this league. He's a star. Even though he's on the tail end, this is one you get behind. You maybe pay him by a couple extra $1 million a year, and you have your CB1. It'd be worth it for the Cardinals. But you know what? Tomorrow he could sign with the Chiefs. Tomorrow he could sign with a team that actually goes for things when the Cardinals seemingly have not this offseason. That's not opinion. It's just fact. Coming up next, Country Thunder, hitting baseballs. What does it all mean? Nothing, but it's an obligatory segment that I have to spend 6 minutes on. So I'm going to do it just for you. That's next. First, Rock Auto. If you don't want to get overcharged by chain storefronts, you don't have to. Okay? I'm going to tell you how. So you go to a chain storefront, and, they're going to do a couple things here. One, they're going to say, you know what? We may not even have it in stock, man. Oh, you need that part? We don't have it in stock. We can order it. It'll take a couple weeks. Or you see the price. You're like, man, that's expensive. Yeah. They can upcharge you 30, 40, 50%. RockAuto.com does not. RockAuto.com does not. They're family-owned business. They wouldn't treat family like that. They've been online for 20 years. Go to RockAuto.com. Their prices are reliably low. They are. You don't get the upcharge. You don't get we don't have that in stock. Like, I'm wearing basketball shorts right now, so I don't have to put jeans on like a dummy to go to a chain storefront. I can sit in my attire and purchase parts for my tires at rockauto.com. Go to rockauto.com. Right, Locked On in there. How did you hear about us box? So they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. All right. I had a ghostwriter for that. I had a ghostwriter for the, in my attire for my stuff for my tires. I should have just taken the credit. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. This is, we're getting kind of into the nitty gritty here on Locked On Cardinals. Thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. Free and available on all platforms. Truly appreciate it. No paywalls here. Go to YouTube. Watch for free. Bunch of videos. We're getting to not a fever pitch, terrible movie, great, I don't know what that is, saying, where the draft is soon. Like, the draft is soon. And we're at the point now where it's like, Yikes. A lot of holes on this roster still. No depth, aside from the tight end position. I guess the offensive line's fine, but, could use more. Over the weekend, luckily I only have 4 or 5 minutes to talk about this. There was picture and video of Steve Keim and Cliff Kingsbury rocking out to Blake Shelton, the huge Arizona Cardinals fan, at Country Thunder out here in Florence, Arizona. It's just an 8-day, just debaucherous, whatever. And people are like, he has time to do that. Why doesn't he have time to build a roster? So there's a couple things that I will defend Steve Keim on. One, fantastic beard. I've got little spots that don't really, I've been growing a beard for 15 years. He's got a fantastic face mane, I guess if you want to call it that. That's one. Number two, you're allowed to be a human being and not always work. Okay? I that's the whole thing. Well, maybe if he's filling the roster and not going to concerts, whatever. I think that's a dumb argument, personally. Having said that, it just brings to mind, oh, wait, he does exist. It's like the M&M seeing Santa on Christmas. He does exist. Yeah, he does exist. And he hasn't been doing anything for this organization, save bringing back a couple guys. Oh, signed Jonathan Ward back yesterday. Fantastic move, Steve Keim. You still have massive holes on this roster. And it just brings it back to the forefront that this dude, yikes. You got a plan, I think. What is it? I don't know. If it's wait till the draft and then draft a couple guys, it's like definition of insanity. Doing the same things, expecting different results, thinking he's the smartest person in the room, and his incredible draft acumen. That's like me every offseason, not working out all year, and then going to the gym, be like, yo, put up 500 on that. I'm going to squat that. And then trying. And then being sent to the hospital. That's what it is. It's if their plan is to build through the draft and not do anything else this offseason, we got a problem. Having said that, what Cliff and Steve Keim do now, whatever. That's a tired, it's a lazy take. Now, pivoting to Kyler Murray, the fun one, I posted on Twitter. I screen recorded from his Instagram, and I gave the credit of his Instagram post on the tweet. He's getting some rips in, whatever. And people are giving him crap for, leaning in and falling to the right a little bit after every swing, after every connect. I mean, what? Stop it. Okay, stop it. The kid likes playing baseball. The young man, the kid, sorry. I mean, people reading into this, well, maybe you should be watching more film instead of hitting baseballs. Stop it. Stop it. Stop. I defend Kyler Murray, but that is stop. It's lazy. And I'm all for, poking the bear. Absolutely. Come on. That's what, especially Twitter, that's what a lot of Twitter is all about. But if that's the hill that you're going to live and die on, stop. Stop it. Stop it. We're going to reconvene about this. If you continue to do it, stop it. It needs to be discussed because they were back to back and it's the off season, and I'll give it 4 minutes. I'm not going to give it 10. But I will defend the employee is a real person in the NFL narrative. I'll defend that because that's real life. That these people, Steve Keim has a job, and I think he's terrible at it, but at least, he has a life. It's never a personal attack on him when I talk about him, ever. It's always that I think he's bad at his job, not that he's a bad person. It's a clear distinction there. You're allowed to have a life. So people are like, oh, it should be well, signing free agents instead of at a concert. Stop it. He should be, but not because he's at a concert. Probably having a couple pops and watching Blake Shelton, who I'm sure, slid them a couple tickets. Be like, hey, you want to see me sweat? You want to be that close? Here you go, Stevie baby. Here are your tickets. So that's all. And the Kyler Murray thing, again, no, I don't think he's going to go play baseball. No, I don't think the Cardinals need to pay him to keep him from going to play baseball. Do you know how much money AAA baseball players make? I'll leave you with that. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. Thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen each and every day, free and available on all platforms. As the draft continues to approach, you must now make your second listen Locked On NFL Draft. Ryan Tracy and former NFL cornerback Eric Crocker bring the NFL Draft to life every day with insight and analysis on college football prospects and NFL front offices. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. I'll talk to you tomorrow.